Alright, as you can see, we're 20 miles out from the VOR, which puts us about 20 miles out from the airport. So what we've done, even though we're not using VOR1 track, we're using VOR2. I've tuned VOR1 into the same frequency, and that is now giving us our DME. And as I said, we're 12 minutes out from the airport, and we are flying at a ground speed of 91 knots. So welcome back. We have got ourselves set up. We are ready for our approach into the airport. We're at 6,200 feet, doing about 190 kilometers an hour. So if we bring up the chart, we're going to be coming in this way. We're going to loop around, aiming towards the beacon, and then we're going to line up on the VOR using the HSI needle, and then we're going to be landing on runway 34 at Graz. So we're going to start our descent at about 15 miles out or so and go down at about 500 feet per minute. We can figure out what we actually need. So we're 6,000 feet. We want to get down to about, the airport elevation is 1,100-ish. So we want 2,100, we'll call it 2,000, 4,000 feet, 500 feet per minute. We're going to need 8 minutes. So what we can do is just go on here, and when that says 8 minutes out, we can just start our descent. And it's a quick and dirty descent calculator for top of descent. So we're going to be flying in slightly south of the VOR, which is the yellow, or the NDB, which is the yellow needle. The green needle is the VOR. And this is the angle we're flying into the airport at. And that will give us our ability to make a nice curving turn in and line ourselves up with the runway. So of course for descent, we're going to turn on our landing lights and all that stuff. We're not going to need flaps for the descent. We'll just ease the power back slightly and let her come down on her own. It'll keep the airspeed up. And then once we're down towards the 2,000 foot mark, we look at our power settings. But as I mentioned, I'm at full prop RPM and full power at the moment, so there's really not much to play with there. So we've got about 3 miles to go before we begin our descent. And like I said, I want to keep an eye on this. I want to bring it in so that we can do a nice curving approach. So we're going to be aiming just south of the beacons as we head in. That's the town of Graz there. And the airport is down around this end over here. It's been a wonderful flight. Not a lot of cloud out to the south, but to the northwest. We have the cloud over the hills. You can see more hills and mountains off to our west. About 2 miles to go before we start down, and we're basically just going to pull the power and play with it until we're descending at about 500 feet per minute. Oh. Let me get rid of the chart there. We have been bouncing around a little bit with the turbulence and stuff, but we're holding good. It's about 6,200 feet and speed's about 190, so not too bad. And you can see with our progress over the ground, it's not the greatest. So this would be reading in knots, so that'd be 79 knots, 80 knots over the ground for our airspeed, or for our ground speed. So you can see this is a low and slow airplane. There is a chimney to the south of the airfield. It's about 1,500 feet, 1,550 feet. I'm going to use that as a marker. We're going to swing south of that, but we're going to use that as a turn point as we come around on our turn to line up with the airport. 12 miles out. Nine minutes to go. So as soon as that hits 8 minutes, actually we'll start down now, just give us an extra little bit of fudge factor. So we're just going to pull back on the power slightly. Now one thing I was going to show you, which I forgot to do, I'll tell you now. There's a leaning that you can do on the engines to get the maximum fuel performance. We're about 500 feet per minute now. That you can get maximum fuel performance from your engines. And what I've done is I've bound a key on my Quadrant, throttle Quadrant, to allow me to go to the best lean. So if I go over and flick that now, you'll see them all kind of come up and move to the best lean for the altitude and the engine settings. And that'll maximize your fuel performance, minimize the excess being burned. And then you can click the switch and she just goes back into rich. So I'll just put those up for now. It can do its thing. We're going to go full rich for landing anyway. I found that was easier than trying to do the individual leaning and watching the exhaust gas temperatures for the perfect point. The thing about this aircraft is you kind of need 9 levers, 3 throttle, 3 prop, 3 mixture, and it just doesn't have it. So make things easy for ourselves a little bit. Try to get that descent going. Bouncing around a little bit here. You can see we're starting to get a little bit of divergence on the needles. We're 10 miles out from the airport, which is great because we're going to go to the yellow needle first, which is the NDB, and then the green needle, which is the VOR. We'll just watch that descent. We're wanting to aim for 2,100 feet. Try to keep it around 500. Alright, so we can get ourselves ready. So we're going to put the electric fuel pump back on because we are going to be playing with the throttles and pulling them back. We want to make sure we have fuel pressure. We're going to come down to the lighting panel. Oop, is that the one? We're going to want our landing lights on. We'll put our taxi light on. The strobe's already on, so that is all good. Down to 4,800 feet now. Just clamp that up. So everything's looking good so far. About 2,500 feet to go. And again, we want to keep about a 500 foot per minute descent. She will slow down fairly quickly when we level off and start pulling the throttles back. Beautiful day here in Austria. Alright, so we're about 2,000 feet to go on the descent. And again, another aircraft where things do not happen quickly, but you do have to stay on top of it. Really low cloud over there. See, we're going to be coming in south of the beacon, which is what we want. 6.5 miles from the airport, or from the VOR anyway. Beautiful views as we come into the valley here. Right, 1,500 feet. Again, this is not a precision approach. In no way is this an ILS or a VOR NDB approach or anything like that. This is strictly a visual approach using the few nav aids we have as a guide to help us get down. That's all it is. Basically following roads, following highways, the valleys, the rivers, the lakes, reading the charts. All right, 1,200 feet to go. Ding the cabin just to let them know we're almost there. Fortunately, there's no ding sound. It would be nice. A 1,000 feet. The airport's actually up here behind us. There's the first set of towers we're going by. Not the ones we're not concerned with. So we're going to start our turn westward. And as we level off, I'm not going to bring the power up all the way. We're going to let the aircraft start slowing down. 500 feet. Gonna work our way around to about a 270 heading for the moment. There's the towers. We're going to come around this way. The NDB's on the other side of those towers. That'll help us line up. $100 feet to go. Start easing back out of the descent. Props are fully forward. Let the speed start coming back. Bring her down to 1,500. See how quickly the airspeed's dropping. And bring her down to about 150. Slowly arc in towards the beacon now. There's 150. A little bit of weather here. Shouldn't be too bad. See the chimney as we go past it, and we're going to just swing around towards the beacon. There's the airport coming into view. So we're headed to the beacon, and then we're going to use the HSI indicator when we get close to being direct in line. We look up a little bit. The airport's pretty much directly ahead of us now. Slightly to the right. There's 150. We're going to go first notch of flaps. Power to hold altitude until we can read the PAPI lights. And we're going to want to descend at about 130. There we are. We're over the beacon. You can see the needle on the left swinging around as we pass it. And we're slowly coming in to the center line. We can see the runway just off to the right of the cowling. Just going to keep edging her over. Go for the next notch on the flaps, bring the power back. Get ourselves lined up. So again, we're going to want 130 for the descent. We've gone to full flaps. So we're a little high, so the power can come back. Just let her come down. So we're about 130 or so. So again, we're going to come down. We're going to do about 120 over the threshold. We should touch down just around 100, and then we're going to keep her pinned on the wheels. It's going to require some rudder and a little bit of forward pressure when we touch down. Once we're down to pin it to the ground, and then as the airspeed slows, we're going to have to keep pushing forward on the yoke as the tail's going to want to drop early, but we don't want that because the airplane could bounce back into the air. So we're going to hold it until it slows right down. And it's not going to take long to stop this thing. As you will see. There we are, we're about 120, that's good. Right on the glide slope. I was just about to say we're going to be slightly high, so we're going to come back. Let her start to come down. Yeah, we want to keep the speed up. Take throttle movement, it's going to take stick movement. A slight crosswind, as the winds are out of the west. So we're going to be angling slightly as we come in. We're going to touch down probably on the left wheel first, and then we'll push the right wheel down as well. Coming down over the lights, we're aiming for the touchdown zone. There we go, 110. Bringing her back. Speed's coming back to 100. Slightly canted to allow for that wheel to touch. Wheels down, power right back. Rotator, get the other wheel down. And on the rudder, pushing forward on the stick. Keep that nose up. Speed's coming back. There she goes. She wants to settle. Stick's almost forward. My stick's fully forward. She's touched down. We're now going to pull back on the stick, pin the tail, and we can roll out. And we're going to exit here on the exit. So welcome to grass. That's how you land a tricycle, large tricycle aircraft, or a tailwheel airplane. That's a wheel landing. You can do that in all the fighters. You can do that on everything. It is a little harder. You do have to land a little bit faster. You're not doing the stall at touchdown. You're actually landing with a little bit of speed, so you could bounce it back up into the air if you pull back too quickly. Let the tail come down too quickly. But I think it gives you a little bit more control, especially in crosswind landing, because you have a little bit more rudder control, rudder authority, and it also gives you better forward visibility, as you can see over the engine. we're just going to pull up here and then we'll go through our shutdown procedure. So the engines are air cooled. They've been running pretty hot. They are now not under load, so a lot of the oils and stuff that have been pressurized are dropping to the bottom of the engines. So what we're going to do to take care of that is we're going to run the engines up slightly and then shut them off after they've been sitting at about 1,000 RPM. So it's a short taxi, so I didn't turn off any of the lights. We just kept the outside view so we can see the airplane. We're just going to come up here to the first spot. Let's get ourselves positioned in here. Get that tail around. And there we go. So we're now set. Jump back inside. And brakes on. So now that we're here, landing lights are off. Strobes are off. Taxi lights off. We'll leave the collision and nav lights on for now. That is all set. We can turn the radio master off, since we're not going to be using that anymore. Pitot heats will come off too. They're going to heat up with no airflow. So they can go off. And now that we're here, what we're going to do is we will pop back up. We're going to bring the engine RPMs up to 1,000 RPM. And we'll let the engines run for a second. What this is going to do is this is going to do what we call scavenging the oil. So the pumps are going to be pumping up the oil out of the pans, make sure that everything's up. The engines are fully lubricated and they're ready to be shut down. There we go. So we'll come down to the panel. First thing we're going to pull the RPMs back into low. That's going to move the blades. It's also going to push all the oil out of the blade mechanism, so it's ready to go. And we'll start the same order we started them up in. So engine 3, we're going to go to idle cutoff idle cutoff on the mixture, and then we're going to go to off, and you'll see the engine come down. Also open some windows. You can hear it shutting down. And they do have a really nice sound. So that engine is now stopped. We'll come back down. We'll go to engine 1. Mixture to idle and off. There she goes. Of course, you could do these quicker if you wanted. And we'll go with the last one. Thank you. So that's coming off. We'll go to the back here. We'll switch over to our batteries. I should have switched those to generators in flight. Again, still learning the airplane, things you forget. So in flight we would have had them on the generators instead of the batteries. And we would turn this over to a generator to run the in-service in the back for the crew. That's fine. Can open up the sunroof, get some air in here. So we're all set. So now that we're down on the ground, anti-collision light can come off, no light can come off. We can go to our panel here, emergency exits off, dome light off, and the seat belts, no smoking signs can come off. That's all good there. We can go to our panel here, the hydraulic pump off, the fuel pump off, and then over onto this side, batteries off, and the blower. And that is the aircraft all parked up. So thank you very much for joining us in this series of videos. Hope you learned how to fly this aircraft, and it is good for you. I've left the flaps down. Of course, you don't want to do that normally. I'll just say that they're going to be inspected by the ground crew, so that's why they're down. We'll see you on the next one. We live stream weekly, multiple times a week. Do come out and join us. Thank you very much for supporting. If you haven't already, please consider hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, and all that good stuff. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.